Hello, Tony here again. Well, we're looking at a little standby instrument in this particular video. It's the ESI 500. It's used in the Kodiak for Microsoft Flight Sim from SimWorks Studios. So I picked up the aircraft fairly recently, and if you fly in Microsoft Flight Sim and you haven't got the Kodiak, it's a must as far as I'm concerned. It's an absolutely tremendous aircraft. Hence I didn't hesitate to do an Air Manager panel for it. So I've been working on a panel, and part of that panel is the ESI 500. So I'll probably cover the panel in a later video, but today I'm going to concentrate just on the electronic standby instrument because it's got quite a few features and it's a nice little instrument, so I thought it deserved a little video of its own. So here we are with it. Let's go power it up and see what it's all about. So you switch the initial power on, you get the splash screen there, and then it goes into this attitude aligning, which takes about a minute or two. While it's doing that, we talk about the instrument a little bit. At the moment you can see it's on this battery symbol. Normally the battery symbol wouldn't come up if it was fully charged, but I've been running this instrument on the battery just while I've been messing about here. So it's showing that we haven't got an hour, is what they claim, for this battery. So when you're in a good state, the battery's in a good state, you've got up to an hour of standby time. So at the moment, because the battery icon is yellow here with the CHG short for charge next to it, that's telling us that we haven't got enough battery power. Even though we're on aircraft power, it's telling us that we're charging. That's what the CHG is all about. But we're yellow, and the bar is not high enough. You can see there it's barely at 25% there. As we carry on using it, you'll see that that will gradually scroll up, and we can look in the menu to see what that percentage of battery charge is. We'll have a look at the menus a little bit later and we can see that. So coming up on finishing the aligning now, the whole idea of this is it's just setting up its sensors for the attitude there. Just need to keep wings level and steady if you were doing this in the air, but chances are you're only going to do it once, and on the ground it should be all good. Yeah, so when the battery charge gets up to a certain point, it will turn green, but at that point it will disappear because it doesn't show it then, because it's not that important anymore, because essentially you've got enough for the minimum of 1 hour. Only when it drops below that does it show the battery charge when you're on aircraft power. When you remove aircraft power and you're on the internal battery, then the battery symbol is there continually the whole time. Obviously it won't say charge next to it because it won't be charging, it'll be depleting at that point. So what you'll probably see is a green battery that's pretty much fully charged, and then it will slowly deplete over time until it gets down to a state where the instrument will eventually go off. You can see it needs to get all the way down for it to go off, because that's basically the full state of charge of the internal battery, or the virtual internal battery in this case. So I've tried to model all the features, or at least all the ones that were either possible with the limitations of what the sim can do, or practical to do. So that's pretty much most features of the ESI 500. It's a nice little instrument, quite simple to use, quite basic in terms of its functionality, but also quite powerful. So let's delve in and have a little deeper look and see what some of those features are. So it replaces obviously your traditional standby instruments. When G1000 first came out, pretty much everyone was fitting the three traditional standby instruments, your attitude, airspeed and altitude. Nowadays most of the standbys that get fitted to aircraft tend to be these electronic ones, as the airliners have been doing for many years. So these electronic standby instruments, because of their nature of having to be standbys to the main system, they don't want to be aircraft electrical system dependent, just in case that was the reason the main system went off. So they have backup batteries normally internally fitted, but sometimes they're external batteries, but they're directly for the function of the standby instrument. This one has an internal battery just in the back of the unit, as do many others. And as I said at the beginning, it's intended to run the instrument for at least an hour. So it gives you an hour if you have a total electrical failure, or at least failure of your primary system, to get back down on the ground. So, as I said, airspeed on the left, the units at the bottom there, knots, and the altitude on the right here. You've got a VS box here, which has a little arrow either pointing up here on the left or down, depending on if you're climbing or descending, and then a heading tape down at the bottom here, which is optional, set up by a user property. That depends on in the real world if you've got the optional magnetometer or an ARINC heading source wired into the back of this unit. We have it turned on here in particular, as it does in a Kodiak. Would think in most cases they would have that function enabled, but maybe not. So I've made it a user property. You can turn it on and off. And then the attitude in the middle here. So you have the option either for a fixed pointer or fixed scale. So either the scale will rotate and the pointer will stay fixed, or the scale will stay fixed and the pointer will rotate. Either way, that is a choice, depending on the way that user property is selected. And then these are all user properties as well. So the colours for the airspeed tapes, you set up the ranges, you set the colours up. So you can have your flaps range and whatnot, and your V&E and everything else on there. And some other options to display some items in the top left here where the battery symbol is. The battery always takes precedence over that real estate, so if the battery symbol is on, depending on the mode of operation and whether it needs to be on, it will always take that real estate. But if it's not on and you've selected something else to go in there, there's an option in the menu to select something else to go there, which I'll show in a minute. Then it will appear in this area. And then at the very top right hand corner is the barometric pressure, obviously related to your altimeter, which that is set with the dial here, so you can increase or decrease with the knob here. And then the knob has also got a click, so it's just like a normal single encoder with up down. Then it's also got a button on the end of the shaft, as many of them do, and you click that for standard pressure. So we click that and we get standard pressure, which is a nice little feature. And then obviously you can adjust from there. So if we delve into the menus a little, you see you come into this menu and it just scrolls up there. If something is not being used, it's greyed out, as you see there, like with the battery shutdown. Nav Mode is, as is course direct to, and set course, data field, set brightness, the Barrow Unit selection, metric altitude, and the system status. And we're back to battery shutdown. You see that one is greyed out because you can't use it. You can use it when you're on battery. We're not on battery at the moment. Don't forget we're charging. We're on ship's power. If we were not on ship's power, then that wouldn't say charger. That would just show a battery indicator and shows the state of charge of that battery. The other thing you just saw there is the menus do time out if you don't do anything in the menu for a while. So if I click it and don't do anything, it will eventually time out. So that one we'll have a look at the end when we shut down the battery power, when it will become enabled. We'll turn off the ship's power, should I say. So the first one we'll have a look at is we'll look at Nav Mode. In Nav Mode, you've got a choice of it being off, which it currently is, or GPS or VOR localizer. So we'll select VOR localizer first, and then there you see we've got the mode. That will be the localizer, as it is in this case, or VOR. It's picked up that we're on a back course to that particular localizer, just based on where we are. But that would normally show your course, so that would say course if you was doing a VOR. In fact, what I might be able to do is see if I can There we go. So there's it changing over to VOR, just changing the nav receiver in the sim there. And then the course here, that is probably important to say for the whole instrument, but the course and all the other features are all independent of the main G1000, so it doesn't rely on any of the same data that it uses. So you can have a total failure there. You can lose your attitude, your airspeed, your altitude, and for the course it doesn't use the same course OBS value as the primary one does. It's got a completely independent OBS setting that you set locally on this instrument, and it then calculates its own to, from, and deviations from that course within the ESI 500 instrument itself. So I've had to program all of that for manual operation as the standby parameters as well, so you can turn off all the electrics in the aeroplane and this thing will carry on running, because it's running on its own internal virtual battery and its own set of sensors. So a little bit challenging to get all of that working, but nice operation of the unit as a standby instrument. It's got that functionality that you don't have to you don't lose anything if you lose something on those primary systems, if you've got, you know, some kind of a failure. So with the rest of the navigation features, you can see here the course is dialed to 180, but we can go into the menu, and associated with that nav mode are a couple of other things, but we're currently set to 180. What do we want? So we want around about 300 and something. So let's set that to 310 or so, and we should see a needle on our display there. 312, that'll do. There you go. So now the needle is pointing to 312, 300, 310, 312. So you can see it's got an arrow pointing up, so that's the actual course of 312 there. The reciprocal of that, 180 degrees round from here, you'll see exactly the same, other than it'll be an arrow pointing downwards, just to indicate that that's the tail of the course needle. So if you think about a traditional HSI course needle, the head of it will be the normal arrow up, and the tail of it, to indicate it's the tail, will have an arrow pointing down, just so you understand where you are, because you're only seeing a selection of the tape here rather than the full compass rose. The lateral deviation indicator is in this area here, just above the heading value here, and then the vertical will be in the corresponding spot just on the right hand side here, just to the left of the altitude tape and barrels. So all that calculation, there's nothing, it's not got anything valid here at the moment, so there is no to or from here, but if it was picking up a valid VOR station, you'd get a 2 in this blank area here next to the source, and or an FR for from, if you were flying from the station. And so that's all calculated locally within the ESI instrument, rather than any of that being linked to the sim. So you set the OBS independently here. There's a couple of units you can set up for. So this, you see, notice it says VOR2, so you can set up for Unit 1 or Unit 2, depending on if you're using the frequencies from Nav 1 or from Nav 2. Then correspondingly, in the other section of the Nav mode is the GPS. So you obviously saw the nav features were green, and in the traditional way the GPS is magenta, as it would be there. And you can see here additionally with how I've got that lateral deviation scale, and the indicator here showing it's at full scale, so it's only showing the triangle off to the left. When it comes to the center, this will become a diamond and it will start moving back towards the center here. Then the desired track over here, and then of course the sense again, and there's your 2 for your GPS. So we'll turn that off for the moment, the nav mode. Don't need that on for the moment, but they're nice to have those on there as well. And then we'll talk about course direct. That's enable or disable. Fairly straightforward. What that does is that provides you, if you're using VOR navigation, if you've got that course direct enabled, what that will do is when it first detects that VOR station, it will automatically tune and adjust the course for you to give you a direct to. So in effect, you're flying a to the VOR station, so it'll select the radial that would give you a to directly to the station, hence the name direct to, which you'd probably want in a lot of cases. So it's a nice feature to have that on, and you can always either leave it off and manually do that yourself, or you can leave it on, let it auto do it, and if you don't need it, you can always then manually, because it only does it when it initially picks up the station. It'll just find out what that direct to course is, and then automatically adjust your value of your course for you, and then you can just manually come in and adjust the course as I showed earlier with this course manual, just by dialing in the value that you need. So after Nav Mode, after direct to, I've showed the course setting. That's kind of predominantly the three nav features, those first three there, and then we get into this data field area. So this data field, you can see now I've got a selection of off, OAT or TAS, true airspeed. We'll leave it on OAT, and hopefully that this battery charges up enough. You can see it's already gaining, like we're probably on the way over a third now and on our way to halfway, so that's going to probably be turning green fairly soon. We'll give it a little bit longer, and then once it turns green it will disappear, and then it will free up this real estate for anything that you've added or you've asked to be added in this data field selection box. So that's basically the data field real estate area in the top left there, if the battery is not being shown. So if we were to put it to off, the battery would just disappear and you'll just see the blue underneath there. But if we leave it on OAT, then yeah, we're on OAT, then we'll get a black box similar to this VS one up here with the words OAT and then whatever the OAT is, and we'd get a similar thing if we selected true airspeed. It would probably be dashed out initially because we're on the ground here, so we're not moving, but as soon as we had an airspeed, we would get the true airspeed value up there. So let's go backwards now in the menus, because we're getting towards the end now, so it's probably a bit quicker to go backwards. You can go forwards or backwards with these menus. That was the data field option. The set brightness option is, it gives you a way of, I think the reason I've called it trim is because it's a trim of the actual value anyway. So you can see on the front of the bezel of the ESI 500 here, there's a sensor on the front here, an ambient light sensor. So that what that essentially does is adjust the screen brightness, and then using this photocell information, it adjusts the brightness. But you have the option to select, whoops, let's go into the menu, to set an offset for that, so you can adjust it down from that position, or if it was already down you could adjust it up. So yeah, we can go all the way. I mean, bear in mind we're in the day here, so it's expecting it to be bright anyway. So it's kind of a trim to whatever the photocell is picking up. Next is the Barrow Unit. So you can see at the moment we're on inches of mercury, 2993, but we can there's your inches. We can select hectopascals, 1014, or millibars, which will give us the same value obviously, or back to inches. So you have a choice of units that you want to display. You can have metric altitude. I don't think many people would have this on. I've got it turned off at the moment, but if you wanted it, it could be there. So you get metric, meaning in meters. You get the option to turn that on. You get a little tick mark there, and you can see now we've got the metric display there above the value in feet here on the rolling tape. So what are we at there? 300 feet, just shy of 290 odd feet, which should equate to 90 meters. I'll turn that back off. And then the last item before we get back to the greyed out battery shutdown is system status. That just gives us a state of our system. You can see the battery charge is now ticking away as it's getting up to 54.2. You can see it's almost at halfway there. Then it's got the battery temperature, so while it's charging it tends to get a little warmer. The last battery count, some of these are just static items, and then this one is picking up from the sim. I'm currently in the Kodiak 100 Aviation Sans Frontier, so that's just some status about what the system is, but there's some useful information in there, and that's essentially the menu system. So if we can get this charge, well, you'll see as we start flying, you'll see the IAT will pop in there as this charge carries on. So what I'll probably do now is just go for a very short flight around the block, just so you can see this moving a little bit and in operation. Some of the drums rolling, and see how fluid this the attitude display is. And while we're taxiing out, you'll see the head intake move around. Sure. And the yaw, the so-called cheese on the cracker here, the yaw triangle on this slab, with obviously the cracker part that slides along. Yeah, so we'll have a quick short flight, and then we'll come back and we'll shut down, and we'll see what the shutdown sequence is, and hopefully the battery will have turned green by that point, and we'll have got enough charge into it. It's slowly charging up now, and eventually I think that's getting very close to disappearing. I think I can't remember the percentage, but I think it might be 60-something%. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. Anyhow, let's see if we can go for a bit of a fly. I'm going to do this a little bit ad hoc here because I've not got my usual Air Manager panels up, and in fact I'm not with the usual sims. I haven't got a yoke or anything, so apologies ahead of time for the state of the flying. But we'll go up and have a little bit of a muck about and see where that gets us. Oh, just beginning to move there now. Already here on the runway. Airborne's in nice and smooth. Just throwing it around a little bit here, just so you can see. You see the coloured tapes now beginning to come up there now. Quite pleased with the way that the barrels turned out, the way the digits scroll. That did take quite a lot of work. That was something I did take from the MD302. But I did find a couple of bugs in generally in the code that I did use, so it was handy because I was able to fix a couple of bugs in that instrument as well. So that was a useful part of the exercise. Probably about 50-50. I managed to reuse a fair bit of code, but there's a lot of new stuff in here as well. So I quite enjoyed making this instrument. I did like doing it. It's challenging, but very rewarding. I'll just get up on the downwind here a little bit. Want a right circuit here. So we're under our first stage of flap speed. We can stick our first stage of flaps in. Beam the runway. Not quite at the 45 yet. Probably a little bit fast as well here. Just turn base. Now we'll turn final. Another stage of flaps. Let's get that speed down. You can fly nice and slow, this Kodiak. As you can see. Just on short final now. And there we are, we're down. A little bit on the brakes there. Hopefully that gives a sense of what the instrument's about and how smooth and fluid it is. Just come off the runway here and then we can just park up very quickly and we can have a look at the shutdown. Like I say, apologies for the flying there, but it was just a quick lap around the block just to show off the instrument a little bit. Ad hoc style. Okay. We can park up here. And then I think we can shut down. So just bringing the collective lever down here. Props beginning to spin down. And there we have a shutdown Kodiak. So let's now turn off the power. And there you can see, I didn't notice that the battery had actually gone off there, so let's just turn that back on quickly to see the OAT. You probably saw that before we shut down. And then, because obviously we had enough charge, it had turned green, it had got up to about, I don't know, what does that look like 70% maybe? It's green, obviously hasn't filled in the last 30% or so, but if obviously we left it on long enough it would get fully charged, and that would probably represent, if we go and have a look at the menus quickly, around about what the charge is. It's obviously depleting there because we've turned the power off, but it comes up with this message: press menu key for battery power. You press the menu key to clear the message, and then if you want to do battery shutdown, which is now enabled because it's blue because we're on battery power, see, notice it's not saying charge, so we're not charging, so we're on battery power, so it's enabled. We would simply go into the menu and then select confirm is automatically selected, so you just click the knob and then it would shut down. But for the moment we'll just do cancel because we don't want to shut down. I'm just going to go and look in the status menu, and yeah, there you go, the battery charge is at 72.2%, so we were probably up at 74% or so when we first shut down. It's obviously dropped a couple of percent there, and you can see it's falling slowly after it was rising when we watched it charging at the very beginning. Yeah, it's now down to 71.8, 71.7 as it's slowly depleting, and that's dropping back down again because we're on internal battery power now. So we'll go to battery shutdown, flick it to confirm now, and we say switch off. So that's what you would normally do for the shutdown. So it's very quick. You just click the menu button a couple of times, and then you just hit this end of this knob a couple of times, one to bring up the menu, and then the last one to confirm, and then the instrument will shut down. Now generally, to power up again, you would power the aircraft on again, as in click the aircraft power on like I just do there, and it will start its attitude aligning thing again. But we'll power it off, and then there's another way to power it up, and that is holding the menu button down for about 10 seconds, and that enables you to power it up just on the internal battery, no shipped power whatsoever, assuming there's charge in the battery of course. And there you go, you come up with immediately we're on the battery, and it's starting to do its alignment all on battery power. But we don't really want to do that because we don't want to deplete the battery anymore, so I'd like to get that nice and charged, ready for my next flight. So I will select battery shutdown and confirm, shut off. So that's the ESI 500 for the Kodiak. I think I mentioned that I've been obviously working on the Kodiak panel, really like the aircraft, so did a left and a right panel for the Kodiak, pretty much done with that now, so I'll be making a video of that shortly, and it'll probably come out after this ESI 500 one, so we can take a look at the whole panel. There's some nice features on that Kodiak panel. It's G1000, again similar to the Caravan, but it's got its own uniqueness about it and a few different nice features, this standby instrument being one of them. So yeah, let's look forward to that. Hope to see you for that, and hope you enjoyed this video. See you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.